Sponsored by Simple Contacts.
FaceTime is based on a lot of open standards, H.264 video, AAC audio, and a bunch of alphabet soup acronyms. And we're going to take it all the way. We're going to the standards bodies starting tomorrow, and we're going to make FaceTime an open industry standard.
That would allow third parties to create FaceTime clients, presumably for Android, Windows, the web, Nintendo, any other platform. But years and years have gone by. No open standard has ever been released, and FaceTime has never gone cross-platform. So, what happened? Hit that subscribe button, tap on that little bell dingus so you don't miss any further explainers, and let's do this. I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is Vector. So first, FaceTime becoming an open standard was just never really part of the plan. It was more like an improv. The WWDC 2010 keynote was set. The FaceTime demo was ready. And then, at the very last minute, Steve Jobs wondered, since FaceTime was based on open standards, if Apple could announce FaceTime as an open standard. And so he did, without talking to the team that made it, letting them hear the big idea at the same time as the rest of the world, live from the keynote stage, announced right alongside FaceTime for iPhone was, coming soonish, FaceTime potentially for everything. Now, that FaceTime hadn't been designed to be an open standard, something that generally requires a level of polish and robustness beyond just get it working in time for the demo and all it has to do is ship on this one here device is one thing. Best case scenario, it gets cleaned up and some parts get rewritten, if they have to, in order to make it cleaner and more robust for everyone, including Apple. While it's completely different than what iOS 1, iPhone OS 1, frameworks went through before the App Store was open to developers for iOS 2, iPhone OS 2, it's not completely different. Worst case scenario, like the App Store then or a host of other features since, it takes a year to go from internal only to external beta as Apple tests things out on themselves and figures out the problems and constraints before testing them on the rest of the world. But before Apple could even figure any of that out, a worser case happened. They got sued. But good. In August of 2010, roughly 2 months after the iPhone 4 and FaceTime were announced, a Las Vegas company named VirnetX filed suit over 4 patents. 1. Agile network protocol for secure communications with assured system availability. 2. Agile network protocol for secure communications using secure domain names. 3. Agile network protocol for secure communications using secure domain names. Part 2, I guess. 4. Establishment of a secure communications link based on a domain name service request. VirnetX is one of those companies that does nothing besides filing suits over anything and everything that can, in any conceivable way, infringe on any of the patents. In short, what many have come to refer to as a patent troll. VirnetX said that Apple was using its technology but refusing to pay fair market value. Apple said VirnetX was out of its non-practicing entity mind and that the patents weren't valid, and even if they were, FaceTime wasn't using any of that technology anyway. I'm nowhere nearly technically savvy enough to understand the nuances here, but it reads a little like VirnetX asserted that any communications that are secured are a VPN, regardless of how they work or what they're used for, and therefore owe VirnetX money. Apple, and presumably a lot of the rest of the internet, would disagree. But the East Texas Rocket Docket, known far and wide for being extremely friendly to non-practicing patent entities, like they'd marry them and spawn thousands more if they could, well, 3 guesses on which side they came down, and the first 2 don't count, because patent encumbered. Apple continued adding FaceTime to other devices like the iPod Touch and iPad, and VirnetX continued adding those devices to their suit, and in 2012, the first decision came down. Apple lost to the tune of $368 million and an ongoing royalty of 1%. Now that might sound like chump change, pocket change for a company the size of Apple, even back then, like the change lost in the infinite loop lobby sofas. But Apple was also set to pay millions more in ongoing royalties to VirnetX for a service they were essentially giving away for free. And more importantly, if FaceTime was released as an open standard, Apple and likely anyone who implemented it would be on the hook for potentially much more. VirnetX has, for example, sued Microsoft, Cisco, and others over the years as well. That is, after all, how that business model works. You sue, in part, to get money to just keep on suing. A lot of the key stuff that happened at the hearings was sealed, and neither Apple nor VirnetX commented. But according to Joe Mullen of Ars Technica, who spoke to a VirnetX stockholder, Jeff Leese, in 2013, and yeah, this is all shades of broken telephone, Apple was forced to re-architect FaceTime at the time. Before the VirnetX case, nearly all FaceTime calls were done through a system of direct communication. Essentially, Apple would verify that both parties had valid FaceTime accounts and then allow their two devices to speak directly with each other over the internet without any intermediary or relay servers. However, a small number of calls, 5 to 10%, according to an Apple engineer who testified at trial, were routed through quote-unquote relay servers. Both sides in the litigation admit that if Apple routes its FaceTime calls through relay servers, it will avoid infringing on the VirnetX patents. Once Apple was found to be infringing and realized it could end up paying an ongoing royalty for using FaceTime, the company redesigned the system so that all FaceTime calls would rely on relay servers. Lease believes the switch happened in April of 2013. It was a much more expensive way to handle FaceTime and, at least initially, a way that resulted in far worse call quality for far more people. Apple eventually got that first verdict overturned on appeal, but in February of 2016, Apple lost the second trial to the tune of $625 million. That decision was overturned by the trial judge, though, due to references made by VirnetX's lawyers to the first trial. The third trial was held in September of 2016, and Apple lost again, this time for $302 million. Apple appealed again, of course, but in January of 2019, just a few months ago, lost that appeal, and now owes $440 million in interest, enhanced damages, and other costs. Apple told Reuters that they'll be appealing this verdict as well, because of course. So, 9 years and who knows how much in lawyers and court fees later, and FaceTime, at least as originally conceived and proffered as an open standard, is still in litigation and may not be out of it for several more years to come. Where initially Apple would have to handle user identification or create a system that could handle both Apple and third-party users and route them between their devices, now that everything is relayed through Apple, it's almost certainly a much bigger job and definitely a much bigger server load. The uncertainty has also affected Apple's internal efforts on FaceTime. Over the years, it never got the same kind of attention as Apple's other big communications app, iMessage. Apple did add FaceTime audio and did bring the service to the Mac and the Watch, but it wasn't until 2018, just last year, that even the most basic, most competitive feature was added, FaceTime group calls, and then, still, only for those Apple devices. We've also just gotten messages integration, if not unification, and an AR camera mode on devices with a true depth camera, which includes Animoji, Memoji stickers, and other fun if gimmicky but ultimately slow AR UI boil stuff. Hopefully that's a sign that, patents or no patents, Apple is ready to move beyond the lawsuits, or at least beyond perseverating over them, and making FaceTime a first-class app, and that's hugely exciting. There are still features I'd love that we haven't gotten, like FaceTime call recording, so we can, with the full consent of all parties involved, use it for YouTube and podcasts and more. And FaceTime screen sharing, so the more technically savvy among us can help the less technically savvy without anywhere nearly as much travel time or frustration. And yeah, the possibility of FaceTime on the web, if not on Android or Windows proper. Google has announced and canceled so many communication services over the years, it's hard to keep track over which ones are still available. But as it gets ready to sunset Hangouts, at least the part that isn't meetings for business, it still has the very FaceTime-like Duo, which is multi-platform and, most recently, available on the web. But it does tie you to the Google ecosystem, which, for some in the age of surveillance capitalism, is as absolutely unacceptable as being tied to Facebook, which is why Messenger and WhatsApp, also cross-platform, are also simply not options. Not when Facebook itself, week after week, sometimes day after day, seems to be doing everything it can to throw fuel on its own hot garbage fire. That leaves Microsoft Skype, which is a solid service but suffers from a terrible user experience that Microsoft seems intent on continually making worse. And yeah, I'm looking right at you, Electron. It's also not end-to-end encrypted by default. I mean, it didn't used to be end-to-end encrypted at all, which was worse, but as of last August, encryption is available. You just have to go turn it on yourself, which, lame. Full end-to-end encryption, full privacy is what makes Apple's services, including FaceTime, so important, and frankly, why people want them to be available beyond just Apple devices. It's what keeps all of us feeling safe in an age where every big agency and internet company has been caught violating our rights and our decency by spying on us. It's what lets doctors and lawyers and therapists and others use it with clients. It's what lets couples feel comfortable keeping their intimacy alive over long distances and periods of time. Yes, it's the old for the good of all humanity argument, and if FaceTime can't work as an open standard anymore, it could still work as a cross-platform service from Apple, right? Give everyone the ability, to quote Scott Forstall, to look each other in the eyes and see how we're doing. I've even got the C part covered for you. If you wear contact lenses and find yourself dreading that annual appointment to renew your prescription, then you're gonna love Simple Contacts. It's a great new company that makes this annoying process very, well, simple. Renew your expired contact lens prescription and reorder your brand of lenses from your phone or computer in minutes. You can take the Simple Contacts vision test online in 5 minutes. A real doctor reviews it, and if your vision hasn't changed, renews your prescription. And if you already have an unexpired prescription, just upload a photo of it or your doctor's info and order your lenses in minutes for a great price. They do all the hard work, all for you. Best of all, you get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order just by going to simplecontacts.com/vector or entering vector at checkout. This isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need that, but it is the most convenient way to renew a prescription and reorder your contacts if your vision hasn't changed. Again, get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order. Just go to simplecontacts.com/vector and enter vector at checkout. Thanks, Simple Contacts, and thanks to all of you for supporting the show. At the end of the day, FaceTime for Android or the web is as possible and as likely as iMessage for Android or the web. I've already posted a video on that, so check the description for the link because it dives into this part with a lot more detail. But essentially, Apple would have to support potentially over 1 billion new users on their servers. And yeah, pay for them, both in terms of the servers and maybe the ongoing royalties. Apple doesn't typically run anything at a loss, so there'd have to be a business model attached. Data harvesting and exploitation and advertising are out, obviously, and sticker packs probably just wouldn't bring in that much. That leaves subscriptions. Apple Music, which the company does make and support for Android, has a subscription model attached to it, and by having an Android version, Apple makes the family plan more attractive to cross-platform households. The same will likely be true for TV Plus, Apple's upcoming video service, which will also be up and coming on smart TVs from Samsung, Vizio, Sony, and LG. Would anyone on Android or Windows or the web pay a monthly or yearly subscription for FaceTime? Maybe a few, probably not many. But to beat the bundle to near undeath, what if it came included with Apple Music, TV Plus, maybe News Plus eventually, Arcade Plus because Plus is for everything, and iMessage Plus for Android and the web? If Apple is serious about building the service's narrative and determined to go from it just works to you can just trust it, then all of that certainly seems like it would have to be part of the endgame. At least that's what I think. Now, I'd love to know what you think. Do you want FaceTime for Android and the web? And would you be willing in any way to pay for it? Hit like, hit subscribe, it really helps out the channel, and then hit up the comments and let me know. And thank you so much for watching.